So I'm gonna start off the video by saying I do not think the overhaul in the forest is bad in any way, shape, or form. The focus is more so on how this recent facelift was implemented and why, in comparison to the previous facelifts, it's been a bit of a bummer. Now, I don't normally like making videos like these. I'd rather just go with things and have a positive outlook, but sometimes I feel like it's important to voice up about certain things. And today we have two very important things to talk about in regards to the latest update we saw for Generation Zero. With all of the facelifts so far, we've gotten pretty clear communication, or the facelift was finalized to the point where we wouldn't have any questions. The major issue I've got with the forest region is that we haven't gotten that clear communication this time. The closest we've gotten is saying the facelift is to the entire region, which is awesome. It's great seeing the whole region revamped, and the effort behind that is probably monumental. And it's not wrong either. The update saw facelifted locations and set pieces all across the region. The problem is that it currently feels incomplete. Between the updated locations, we have huge swaths of the region left completely untouched, and this makes a jarring experience crossing the region, at least for me. With the sporadic placements of these changes, it just feels very scattered overall. Especially when you come into the region at first, you won't even see any changes until you get into Ostrovik City proper. Now again, I want to stress this. It's not the facelifts themselves that's disappointing here. They're actually great and sometimes even phenomenal. Things feel incredibly hand-tailored in this facelift, and the exploration added into many of the less interesting areas of the map is awesome. And on top of that, Tylovden, the mountain where we make our base, is freaking rad. It's like this massive phoenix base built into the mountain, and it's probably one of the most impressive phoenix bases to date. But like seriously, we see changes outside of the region instead of in it, where certain locations could have really done for a spruce up. In the past, there was something nice and structured about us hearing, hey, this is the revamp we're gonna do, and then seeing it happen in the update, and having that kind of clear communication, or at least like a heads up inside of the patch notes themselves about where this facelift was at. And even though we never got a clear answer that the farmlands have been finished, it all comes into question now. Personally, I assumed that since we were moving on to a new region, that meant that the farmlands were finished up, and I'm sure a ton of other players thought so too. There is a whole other side to this though, and that is the creative energy of the team. Because to take that into consideration, maybe these facelifts were done sporadically so the team wouldn't feel pressured to revamp the whole region at once. Or maybe the forest region is complete, but it's only being rolled out in bits and pieces to give more to future updates or lessen the load on consoles. And that all is pretty relevant and fair. The only thing I hope is that we could get some clear communication on the farmlands and the status of that region, whether or not it's done or we're going to see more come along the way, and some clear communication on the forest region, especially on whether or not it's being rolled out in bits and pieces, or if it's something that's going to be a work in progress and we're going to be seeing it take the entire year, much like the farmlands did last year. We don't need to know like the entire game plan. Maybe I'm asking for too much, and that's fine. But knowing a bit of the idea would be really good for the community as a whole, I think. Now, the next thing up to bat has been a contentious thing for some of the community here: the boarding up and blocking off of houses. So, most of you probably know that I don't really play using houses as cover myself, unless if I'm running around the house. But I do realize that it's a very important thing for a lot of players out there, and currently they're getting the shit end of the stick as these updates go on. It's not without reason, and the reasoning is entirely fair though. The main reason why we're seeing so many houses and buildings blocked off or destroyed is for console performance, plain and simple. GZ pushes the heck out of the outdated hardware on the PS4 and Xbox One. Y'all console players can agree, when you're in Ostrovik, it's like 10 FPS, and when you're on Himfell, it's much of the same. So blocking off and boarding up houses allows the building to remain in place, but have less of an impact on the console's performance, and that's pretty much the gist of it. Even if it means things are worse off for current gen console players and PC players, it's the sacrifice that's got to be made to keep the thousands of players on last gen consoles up to date with the same game that we're all playing here. We're going to talk more in depth about consoles and the current state of things in a future video, but for now, as long as we're working with 5 different platforms, it's probably going to be much of the same as we see future revamps in the mountains region, the marshlands, and the north coast. I think it's a good thing the team is trying to take care of all the players here, and though the end result is not the best, it's respectable, at least to me, and again, really shows the heart of this team. We could probably strike a bit better of a balance for the players that like stealth guerrilla play of utilizing houses and keeping things optimal on consoles performance-wise, but it's really hard to say right now with things currently feeling incomplete facelift-wise in the forest region. So I gotta ask you dudes, what do you think of the revamps? Do you enjoy them? Honestly, some of the visual storytelling is superb in a lot of these locations. But do you feel me on the fact that this kind of feels incomplete? Also, I want to know, has the boarding up of houses and buildings affected you negatively? Because for me, I don't really use them too much, so I want to know from the players that do use them. So let me know all of your thoughts and all of your feelings in the comment section down below. But for now, thank you so much for watching my video and hearing me out here. Again, I gotta say, the facelifts themselves are awesome, and I look forward to what the rest of the forest region is going to look like when things are complete.